Hi. There's a subscriber I know, a fan or subscriber, whichever, that wanted me to talk about the lore of Bobecca. So I'll tell you the story of it. Of that ship. Not the story of how I got into it, but the character stories. Well, Rebecca was young when she was like 12 when she met Bob. She met him on the Krusty show. She was a little older than Bart. But Bart, Lisa, and Maggie were with her. So, anyways, Bob and Bob didn't notice her, as you know, during Krusty gets busted. So you know what happened there. But in a version I wrote, I made it to where he asked for her to come up instead of Bart. And I'll tell you more about this story instead of the regular story, but whatever. So, when he called her up, she told him about the same things that Bart did. But she also admitted that she had feelings for that she kind of had. She was a huge fan of Bob. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that she had feelings yet. That doesn't come up for a while. So, anyways, there. So after she told him about her fandom, he thought that she was really sweet and that she was the only fan he thought he had. And and then okay, but he knew he had other fans, but she was the closest fan he had, and the oldest fan he had probably. Because usually most of his fans are 10 or not, anywhere from the 5 to 10 era, or 5 to 9 range. Sorry. He usually doesn't have as many fans as Krusty, which he found surprising that she wasn't as much of a Krusty fan as, like, say, any of the other fans. Anyways, the next time he met up with her was whenever was about the time that he had been writing letters to Bart. The blood letters, in the episode Cape Fear. They didn't have anything to do with each other in Black Widower because, of course, Bob was with Selma at that time, so he wouldn't really know about Rebecca's new feelings for him. Anyways, during the Cape Fear episode, there's Rebecca gets letters too from Bob, but these aren't wrote in blood. These are now wrote in ink. And even though he mainly used his blood for Bart, he used ink to write to Rebecca. He didn't want to scare her or her family, which her family includes Herbert Powell, a woman named Lindsay Leday, and her 2 siblings, Kevin and Tiffany Simpson, which they all used to live in Detroit until Herbert moved to Springfield. Okay, anyways. So at this time, Bob would Bob was let out on for parole because of the whole, what happened in Cape Fear thing. Well, when he got let out, the second time he went to the movie theater to see that exact same movie, he ran into Rebecca and her family, which he was happy to run into Rebecca this time. He was more happy to run into Bart, but, here he was happier. He realized Rebecca knew a lot about him, and he had told her, "Hello, Rebecca. I'm glad to see you." And she said, "Bob, was it you who wrote me all those letters in ink?" "Indeed it was. Indeed it was I," he says. She was happy, and Herbert and Lindsay got really upset and said, "So you're trying to take our daughter or something? Are you trying to take our daughter?" And Bob said, "Of course I'm not trying to take your daughter. She's just my biggest fan, and I'm grateful to have a fan of her like her, and to even have a fan at all now. I mean, after the whole Bart thing, I lost all my fans." "Well, you don't really have to keep trying to write letters to our daughter. You're kind of older than her." "I don't have feelings for her," he says. "I just want to be her friend." "Can an older guy be friends with a girl like her?" "It's kind of creepy," they said, "but maybe. I don't think it's against the law," says Herb. Anyways, Kevin then looks up and says, "Bob, you're wanted, aren't you still?" He's like, I got let out on parole. Tiffany says, but why were you let out on parole? Don't they know that you're still after Bart? Bob said, I may still be after Bart, but I tricked them into thinking I wasn't. Did you hear about the whole German thing they said? He says to them, no, we didn't know. There wasn't any news about you being released this time. Like, oh. Unlike last time, they didn't reveal my parole. Okay. Anyways. Later the next day, Herbert, Pal, and Lindsay decided to move to Cypress. I mean, not to Cypress Creek. What was that place's name? Cape. No, not Cape Your Word. Wherever the Simpsons moved to when they became the Thompsons. Anyways, when they had reached there, Bob was actually there traveling with them like he did with the Simpsons. As he had traveled with the Simpsons, not with Herbert and his family. Because the Simpsons had also went there at the same time. Because of Bart's issues. Anyways. Bob first scared Bart in this scene about, the whole elephant scene and the whole attachment to the car. Well, then whenever later that same day, he attached himself to another car and ran into Rebecca and Tiffany, who would go to the same school. Rebecca, of course, went to the whole elementary school, and Tiffany did too because she was younger. Kevin went to another school because he was in high school at that point. Anyways, Bob greeted Rebecca and told her that he was still very much happy to see her. Rebecca almost admitted her feelings to him, but she instead decided to let that go and say that she was happy to see him too and that she missed him. She knew anyways. Okay, that night, Bob actually went on to the houseboat of Rebecca's family instead of Bart's this time. None of the rape gag didn't happen in this episode, in this scene, or in this story. Anyways, when he reached the houseboat, he told Rebecca he had a flower for Rebecca, but it was more of a friendly notion than a romantic notion because he didn't know she had a crush on him. Okay, anyways, when he found her in her room, he whispered, hello, Rebecca. I'm glad to see you. I got this for you. When she saw him with a flower, aka a rose in this case, because I want you to know it's a rose, she blushed and told him that she was so happy, and she asked why he got this for her, and he said, because it's as pretty as you. And she blushed and almost kissed him, but she held herself back. She told him, you're so sweet, Bob. Just keep your voice down. I don't want your parents knowing I'm here. Anyways, none of that whole singing stuff happened after Rebecca and Bob did the whole flower thing. Go away, you damn fly. Get away. Sorry, there's a fly in here. Okay, anyways. The next time they met up was during the Sideshow Bob Roberts episode. And this time Bob and Rebecca was a little older. Now she's 13. And she wanted to help Bob become mayor. She didn't do my story. If you read my story that's called The Story of Sideshow Bob and Rebecca Simpson, this story is not like it. Where I said that she wanted him to make it legal for older men to date younger girls. No, I don't want that in this story. That story I did because I was more deeply involved into that story. Anyways, in this tale, Rebecca still helps Bob, but whenever he becomes mayor, he lets her move on to high school because she's so smart. And which that's kind of surprising because he also did the same thing for Lisa in this story. Well, he didn't put her in high school. He put her in middle school. But whatever. After the whole judge scene and him getting arrested, Rebecca felt awful, and she had to be put back in middle school This time she was in middle school because she was a little older. The next the next time they met up was when Bob was trying to blow up Springfield with a nuclear bomb. Anyways, there she helped her cousin Lisa and her were trying to stop Bob. Rebecca said, "Bob, if you're doing this just to get attention, you don't have to do this. You've already got one person's attention, and they already like you very much." Says, "And who is that?" "I don't have a girlfriend now, not after the whole Selma incident." Says, "She may not be your girlfriend, but she does have a crush on you. She does have a crush on you. Yeah." He says, "And who is that? I hope she's around my age." He says, "She may be a little younger than you." "I hope she's only a few years younger," he says. "Well, you're talking to her right now." "You have a crush on me," he says. "Indeed I do, Bob. And I hope it's okay. You're only 13. I don't think you should be crushing on me. I'm a little too old for you." Anyways, and the next time they met up was during the whole Cecil scene. Actually, at this point she was 15, and so Cecil had also met up with her during this. Her and Cecil were now friends, while she still had a crush on Bob, a bigger crush on him. She wanted to date him because now she's 15, and he's only a few years older. He's like maybe double her age, and she thinks being 15 will equal him wanting to be with her. She asked him to date her, but he says, "We'll go on a single date, but I don't know if this will be considered but I don't want you to think that we're going out fully. I just want to see how you're different from Bart." She says, "I'm way different from my cousin Bart." Okay, anyways. Anytime that those two are alone, those two on their date, Rebecca tells Bob, "You're so handsome, Bob." Anyways, they go out on that date, and Bob realizes she's probably the best thing that's ever happened to him. At least this is until he meets up with Francesca, and then he meets up with Tasha. And that'll be a long time after this. Okay. Then Bob realized that Cecil, of course, in this point, was framing him. He helps Rebecca tries to help him stop Cecil with Lisa and Bart's help. Even though in the real episode, Bart and Lisa are the only ones to go, Rebecca goes along because she's old enough to try to stop Cecil. Not like Bart and Lisa, who really didn't have a chance, who did stop Cecil in the regular episode. Anyways, Rebecca did the stopping of Cecil, really. Bob, Bart, and Lisa were dealing with the dynamite. Okay. Then in Day of the Jackanapes, as you know, that was the next Bob episode. Bob hypnotizes Rebecca because he didn't want Bart to do it this time because he had tried Bart, and in this scenario, Bart still refused to do it even by being he refused to be hypnotized because he was, too smart in this case. Anyways, Rebecca was not really hypnotized, but she was persuaded. And Bob said, "Since you're so much into me, I bet you wouldn't mind taking out Krusty for me." She, of course, was hesitant because of her cousin's major fandom of him. And she says, "But Bart's a huge fan. I can't do this to Bart." He says, "Oh, I'll make you do this, even if I thought you loved me, of course. I thought you would do this for me because you love me." I do love you, Bob, but I don't want to hurt Bart." He says, "So you're more worried about your family than me. Hey, Bart's my cousin. I have to worry about my family more." He says, "Okay, well then I'll get Bart to do it." "I don't think he'll do it for you because you told me before." He refused. Yes, he refused. "Maybe I'll get Lisa to do it." He says, "Lisa wouldn't do it either. She's a huge fan of Krusty." He says, "Whatever. Okay. When it comes time for the next... Okay, then when this next scenario, Herbert and Lindy and the whole family and their family went to the spa that the regular Simpsons went to in the episode The Great Loud Detective, and this time Herbert was the one that was followed by the murderer. Okay, sorry, I couldn't think of how to word that. Anyways, then the family went to the police and told them, and Wiggum, of course, told them that Homer had the same thing happen to him a week before. So they went to go get Sideshow Bob. And this time, and like last time, Bob stayed with them, which Rebecca was so happy about. This meant she could do anything to Bob, she thought, but her parents told her that they only wanted her to be a little bit romantic, like kissing, hugging, dates, stuff like that. They aren't ready for her to do anything major, which you can guess is understandable by the age of her. Being 15, she's too young to do anything major. I'm not saying the words because this is gonna be a public video and I don't want to get demonetized. Okay. Anyways, with the whole Bob staying with them, Bob tried to figure out who was after him. And of course, like last time, you'll find out that they find out that it's actually someone who hates Herb. Not, it's like one of his enemies. You never learned of an enemy of Herb during the regular show, but during my show or stories, he has an enemy. Anyways, during the whole time he was staying, he watched TV a lot with Rebecca, and he slept in the same room as Lisa. Well, not Lisa. He slept in Kevin's room with him due to how Kevin was a teenager and Bob really wouldn't do anything to Kevin. Herbert knew that if he put Bob and Rebecca in the same room, they might end up having fun. And anyway, so that's why Herb didn't let Rebecca and Bob stay in the same room. They did go on a few dates during this whole time. Mostly to one of the major ones was to Moe's, where they shared drinks. They didn't. Rebecca drank mostly water, while Bob had a few stuffs. So during the whole, anyways, then Bob tried to kill Bart, and then he moved to. Bob then told Rebecca that he had to go somewhere because he was afraid he would go back to jail. Anyways, then he moved to Italy. Rebecca found out about this after a week, and this was when she was 16. Okay, at this point, Rebecca didn't know that Bob had moved to Italy. When she found out he moved to Italy, she also learned that he was married, which made her really upset because they had been in love for a while, and she couldn't believe he would betray her. She says, "We were dating, weren't we?" "Actually, Rebecca, we were not dating. We were just friends. Super close friends. Sure, I kissed you a few times, but that does not mean we were together." She cried over this, and for a while she doesn't accept the fact that he wants her to forgive him. He tried to tell her that he never really wanted her as his girlfriend at that point because she was too young. Now that she's 16, he's thinking about dumping Francesca, but he's worried that if he does dump Francesca, that he will no longer be evil. So he stayed with Francesca. Okay, then when he moves back to America and, does the whole Funeral for a Fiend episode where he tries to kill Bart, this time Rebecca is the one to foil the scheme and tells Bob, "Bob, I can't believe you're wanting to kill Bart." He says, "But Rebecca, you know I want to kill Bart. He's still my mortal enemy. But he's not as bad as he used to be. And besides, I thought we've talked about this." "Rebecca, you haven't changed me yet because we haven't started dating. Because I'm still with Francesca." Anyways, then whenever Bob was helping Krusty, Rebecca knew about this and because Herbert and Lindsay were trying to renew their vows, and their dad got kidnapped. Rebecca and Tiffany went after Bob, which now Tiffany is 13, aka she's 3 years younger than her sister. Anyways, the two find Bob working, helping, at Krusty's place. They think that he's got. They see him with a knife and think that he's that he's trying to kill their dad. So Tiffany and Rebecca go to the door and say, Tiffany says, Bob, drop that knife and give back our dad. When they realize he was doing a clay model, Bob tells them that he didn't kidnap their father, that someone else did, and the SB could be his ex-wife, and his ex-wife at this point, because Francesca had dumped him after the whole jail sentence from Funeral for a Fiend. Anyways, the next time those two met up was during the episode Bob Next Door, where Bob, was Walt, and he flirted with her because at this point she was 19. He wanted to flirt with her really bad because she was 19. So a few years had passed. So during this whole ordeal, he flirted with her as Walt, telling her, "You're as cute now, and remember, I'm single now, and since you're 19, you're old enough for me." She says, "You really think I'm old enough for you now?" "Yes, and I still think you're beautiful. So if you ever want to go out with me, she said, "I'd love to go out with you." So then they go on a few dates. One of their dates was supposed to be at the baseball game, but he tells her and she doesn't know that it's actually Bob. He actually had said something else. Well, actually, she knew it was Bob. Sorry, I'm thinking off the plot. Anyways, so they go to a baseball game with Bart this time. So this time Bart does not end up in Five Corners. He ends up at the baseball game. But then Bob leaves Rebecca at the baseball game and goes to Five Corners with Bart to try and kill him. But Rebecca finds out and calls the police. Bob says, "Blasted Wickham, how did you find us again?" And Wickham tells him this time that his girlfriend called and said that he had left the ball game without her, and that she knew he had to be planning something to kill Bart. He got mad, and once he saw Rebecca, he says, "I thought you loved me." And she says, "I do, but I love Bart. I don't want anything bad to happen to my cousin." So he gets arrested, and of course, they had also found, this time still in jail was the real Walt Warren. So this time, Bob went back to the penitentiary and switched places with Walt Warren there. Okay, then during the Men Who Grew Too Much, Rebecca worked with Bob and Monsanto. She originally was the chief scientist, and then Bob came in and was the co-chief scientist. So they worked together to make GMOs. Then Bob revealed the whole change in his DNA. Rebecca was upset by this. Anyways, after Bob Rebecca convinced him to stop doing that, and so he didn't get arrested this time, so he actually, but he did go back, but this time he did go back to, but after a while he went back to jail. Later, during his prison time, he was working outside at that highway. He was trying to pick up garbage with those prisoners. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Anyways, at that time, Herbert and his family drove by, knocking over a dumpster and causing all that trash to fall out, the same way that Homer did in the Gone Boy episode. But at this time, Bob was not angry. He knew that it was Herbert's car because he could tell the difference between Herb and Homer's. Well, actually, Homer's driving, you know what? Forget that. But anyways, when Bob realized it was Herb, he didn't growl and he thought, well, Rebecca's not in the car with him this time, so I doubt that she had anything to do with it. So he probably didn't think anything of it. Then Rebecca's car drove by, and she stopped to say hi to Bob when when a guard came up and said, "You cannot talk to this man. This man is a criminal." She said, "But he's my boyfriend." And he says, "I am indeed her boyfriend, so let her talk to me." The guard let her talk to him, but then told her that she had to leave so that they could get back to picking up litter. Okay, after that, and the next time they met up was, of course, the It's Cold Outside episode, where Bob had met up with Cassandra, but Rebecca had realized that he didn't date her, or he wasn't one to date her. So she also stayed in the lighthouse. This was because she didn't want to live in a house next to her other family, the Simpsons. So at this point, Rebecca had told Bob that she was one. He had actually proposed to her. Yes, this was a nuisance. This was because he wanted to live with a woman so badly. After the whole Selma and Francesca bit, he realized that he had only one more chance, and that was Rebecca. And Rebecca knew that he would never give up on her, hopefully, and that he would never put them in jail, hopefully again. Anyways, when Bob became the mall senator, Rebecca asked if she could be could work at the mall too, at the amusement park as a mall elf or whatever. And they allowed her too. So Bob and Rebecca worked together at the amusement park. And when it came time to go find out who was stealing all the presents, this time, because it had happened a second time, this time when they found out who it was actually Selma and Patty. So the letters Lenny wrote down were SP this time, so people would know. And they actually figured it out. Other people figured it out easily. They were like, SP. SP. Only SP I can think of is Selma and Patty, a lot of people thought, and they were right. Homer called them in, but they didn't get arrested until Bob found out about them. Actually, they didn't get arrested. They just, they just returned all the presents. Same thing happened with Burns. Anyways, then the next time they met up, okay, then Bob and Rebecca got married, and after a while they had 3 kids named Chaz, Lori, and Mimi. Lori being the oldest, being born first. Then and she is now 16. Then there was Chaz, who was born 6 years after her, meaning he is now 10. And Mimi, who was born 2 years after Chaz, meaning she's 8. In some pictures, I know I make her a baby, but she's supposed to be 8. And Chad is supposed to be 10, and Lori is supposed to be 16. And now, the conclusion. Now, Bob may be married to Tasha, but he's also married to Rebecca. Don't believe the Tasha storyline, actually. It's not true. The whole Tasha thing was tossed out the door at the end of the Yellow Lotus, I think. So now it's just Bob and Rebecca in my story. The Tasha thing is for the other show, is for the real show, so you can think that's true. Thank you for listening. If you want to, please subscribe and comment telling me what you want to know, what other things you want to know about Rebecca Simpson. Like this video, and please follow me on other social media. Follow me on Facebook at Rebecca Irwin. Follow me on X at Bobecca Love. Follow me on Instagram, Twitch, Snapchat, Discord. What else do I have? Tumblr and Reddit. And please, on Reddit, leave comment on my posts. Same with Tumblr and all those other sites. And if you follow me on X, make sure you're not random. Because I don't want no more random followers on X. Sorry, I keep calling it Twitter. Thank you for listening. This is Rebecca Irwin, the creator of Bobecca, and the creator of the Rebecca Simpson character, and also the person who created Doneka. If you want to learn about Doneka, tell me, and I'll do that story too.